This is logged in on November 25th, 2023, Eastern Standard Time. Sensitive material has been breached and it is now in front of the public. This is very sensitive documentation and the world will be in total chaos if leaked, and it is now leaked. All of it. Not one document, all of it. Place of exploitation, forbidden knowledge television. This must be stopped.
All right. What's happening, everybody? Billy Carson here, aka Forbidden Knowledge. Welcome back to another amazing Forbidden Knowledge podcast. I say to everyone in the live chat, what's up, Born King, Haji, Larry, Regan, everybody in the live chat, what's happening? Thanks for coming on. Make sure you guys click that like button. Click the like button and make sure you actually share this video. Tonight, we're going to be talking about life on Mars, uncovered. All right, so we're going to go deep into some of the CIA document. We're going to look at another CIA document that talks about remote viewing and the history of it. And then we're going to also now take a journey to Mars. Science data that I'm going to show you tonight. Some science data about Mars that's going to blow you away that most people didn't even knew existed. Okay, so it's going to be a great talk tonight. We'll show you a few videos tonight. You're going to hear some information, also some mind-blowing information about a particular person that's directly related to a president of the United States that aired on Coast to Coast AM. You're going to hear from her voice as well as to what they were trying to do with her and Mars over a decade ago. Okay, so Mars is a very interesting place, very, very interesting place. And we're going to explore why it might be so interesting tonight. It's really one of those things that makes you want to scratch your head. Why, oh, why have they spent so much money going to Mars? Why have they spent so much research on Mars? They meaning the government of the world. Why have they done this? Well, tonight might answer some of those questions. I believe that they have done this because Mars could be the new Exodus, another place to go and rebuild and rekindle civilization. Just in case Earth is doomed. All right. So that's what I believe it's all about. We're going to dive deep in this tonight. Okay. Deep into this tonight. It's going to be an amazing talk. So please click that like button. Let's get the algorithm going. Make sure you share the video. Let's see how many people we can get into this live chat tonight. We're going to be talking about Mars. All right. Let me make sure this text message goes out as well. And if you don't have my text message, it's 888-609-3975. I'll drop it in the live chat right here. If you want to get notified when we go live, 888-609-3975. Just text me. All right. I just dropped it in the live chat because, these notifications don't always go out. So since they don't always go out, we need to make sure that you guys are aware that we are actually going live. So just text that number 888-609-3975 and we will add you to the text message database and just drop you a text. Say, hey, we're live right now. And here's the link to go where we're live. We could be live on Instagram. We could be live on YouTube. We could be live on our own TV network. We could be live anywhere. We'll let you know when we're live. All right. Again, the talk tonight, Life on Mars Uncovered. All right. Life on Mars Uncovered. Mars is a very interesting place. When you look at Mars, it's got this reddish hue to it in all of the image or most of the images. They're not putting it in all of the images anymore. But when you see this reddish hue and you see a lot of the images that have come back from a lot of the rover data and a lot of the satellite data and probe data, they have this hard red hue. Now, if you really look in the lower corner of the image or in the description of the image of the ones that are really turned to this red hue, you'll see that it says false color. When you go then look up what false color means at Caltech or NASA or Washington.edu or JPL, any of the sites that host this data, they'll tell you that they've added this false color to the images because supposedly it makes it so much easier to transmit it back to Earth. Okay. So they obfuscate the image with this red hue that kind of blends everything together, makes the rocks look like they're blended together, and anything else that you can possibly want to look at there. Okay. And then all of a sudden they said it makes it easier to transmit it back to Earth. And that's the reason for the false color. And that was a predominant thing that was going on for quite some time. Just recently, within the last couple of years, because of a lot of pressure, they started releasing images that weren't as edited, or in terms of the coloration, wasn't as false color. Some of the images from worldwidetelescope.org actually have several colors. They'll tell you false color, or you can go and see the actual original color. And those are actually older, but the majority of the population doesn't even know that that website even exists. So tonight, I'm going to take you all on a journey to Mars. We're going to Mars tonight, and we're going to take a look around on the surface, and we're going to see if we can spot anything that appears to be out of place or maybe an anomaly. Okay, so we'll take a little journey to Mars. We'll be looking through the mast cam of a rover. We'll be zooming in and out, panning left and right, taking a look around at this site that I found quite some time ago. And then you be the judge. You form your own opinion on what you think is up there or not. But it's going to be an amazing night. I'll take you guys on a live journey. We're going to travel from Earth to Mars tonight. All right. Now, Mars, let's talk about it a little bit in ancient context. Okay. It's well known and well documented in the ancient Sumerian tablets. Well documented. As a matter of fact, the Igigi, who were the working class Anunnaki, according to the tablets, they actually were working on Mars and on Earth. They were workers. If you have a construction company, you have the master architect that's working in coordination with the foreman. The foreman then has a manager, and underneath the manager, there are actual workers. They're all in the process of construction, but not everyone's lifting an axe, right? Not everyone's driving a backhoe, but they're all in the process of construction. And according to these texts, they were cleaning out the Tigris and Euphrates River here on Earth to create irrigation fields and building cities. That was declared by Enlil. And also on Mars, they were mining for resources and building cities there as well. That's not according to me. That's according to the tablets. So it's pretty interesting that these beings were there, because now when we go into the CIA document, all of a sudden, there seems to be a potential connection to intelligence that was accomplished via remote viewing and what ancient tablets have to say about it. All right. So we're going to check this out. It's going to be a great talk tonight. Let me see if I can get this, get a couple things up for you. Now, before I get into that, there's one more thing I want to tell you about Mars in the ancient times. So there's a couple things that are pretty interesting. The first thing is Mars's orbit around our sun doesn't appear to be the original orbital pattern. They're saying, astrophysicists are saying, that this very strange orbit, when it's in perigee and apogee from Earth, is very strange and extremely elliptical and off tilt. And so when they run it through computer simulation models to discover how Mars obtained this type of orbit around our sun, they came up with the conclusion that Mars may have been a habitable moon that orbited another planet within our early solar system. Now, what's interesting about that, when you look at, again, the ancient text, you discover that this Mars was orbiting a planet named Tiamat, an ancient planet named Tiamat, which was 4 to 6 times larger than Earth. When you read the Enuma Elish, it's kind of like reading an astrophysics book. You begin to see this big dance of planets and moons in our solar system as they gain their nets. It's what they call them, nets, but that means orbits. At some point, Tiamat collided with another object And that object was coming from a satellite, not a satellite technologically, but that satellite in aerospace or astrophysics means like a moonlet or moon. It was orbiting Nibiru in the oldest version of the Anomalies. And the version that Marduk changed, he changed the name Nibiru to Marduk. Okay. But either way, this object smashed into Tiamat, broke it into pieces. Okay. Broke it into absolute pieces. Now, what's crazy is if Mars was really orbiting Tiamat, it would make a lot of sense as to the current state of Mars, the damaged state of Mars. Because millions of years ago, this must have happened. You can see that Mars on one side is completely charred, and on the other side is the smoothest surface in the solar system. Meaning, and you can tell that there was a global flood on Mars. And the side that's charred, potentially, it's a hypothesis, could have been facing Tiamat when it began to explode or disintegrate, pushing a lot of mass onto one side, burning and charring. And also Mars, we know, is tilted about 45 degrees on its axis. Its equator is in an angle. And we know that this potentially happened from a global disaster. That's what scientists have said. Now, it's interesting that what they said about this, if this happened, that when this planet Tiamat blew up, Mars was slung into a very strange orbit around our sun, a very strange elliptical orbit around our sun, as it was now no longer orbiting a planet, and it recaptured its own orbit around our sun and became a planet. So you have Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars. There's another planet after Mars called Ceres, C-E-R-E-S, not Sirius like the star system, but Ceres, C-E-R-E-S. And then after that, you have the rest of the planets going into the outer solar system, okay? But right after Ceres is what? The asteroid belt. And it's also called in ancient texts the hammered bracelet. So the asteroid belt potentially could be the destruction of Tiamat. Tiamat could be an exploded planet that became the asteroid belt, but also, according to this text, one giant chunk swung away, recoalesced with the organic material and water needed to create life, and recoalesced as Earth, pushing Venus closer to the sun, giving it that greenhouse gas effect, pushing Mercury closer to the sun, giving it that scorched effect, taking the third place or the third rock from the sun, gravitationally tugging with it the moon, which would be potentially a second orbiting satellite of this ancient Tiamat. And now people say, well, the asteroid belt doesn't account for enough mass to be a planet that size. But you have to remember, when something blows up, it blows up and out, and there's no friction in space, so it moves up, out, and away. When you research the solar system, you realize that we have the inner solar system, and then we have, beyond Pluto, the inner Oort cloud, which is a ton of debris that could add up to the total mass of a missing planet or even planets. And then you have the outer Oort cloud, even more debris that could end up being dozens of planets, potentially. So there's definitely enough evidence there, in my opinion, that some of this destruction has formed this this orbit around our sun, known as the inner Oort cloud and the Oort cloud. And of course, then the asteroid belt as well. So when Mars slung out of that orbit around Tiamat, it gained its own incredible, strange orbit around our sun. That's why when we take missions to Mars, we have to rendezvous with Mars every 24 months. The launch window is every 2 years to rendezvous with Mars. If you try to go before then or during the middle of that time period, it'll take you much longer to get to it because it'll be too far away. You have to rendezvous when it's at its closest point. And sometimes it could take 8 to 9 months, 10 months to get to Mars, or sometimes it can only take 3 months to get there, depending on where it is in its orbit around the sun, whether it's in apogee or perigee. Okay? So that's some interesting stuff about Mars. Mars is pretty interesting. It's pretty interesting. Now, we're going to go into the CIA document and take a look at it. Okay? Let's analyze this document a little bit, and I'm going to show you the document for a second here on the screen. I had it up here. Let's just see where I put it here. 1 second. Okay, that's the CIA document for Project Stargate. Let's pull this one in here. Okay. Excuse me. All right. Let's share the screen. I just want you to see the document and tell you where it's located so you guys can pull it up yourself. This is the CIA document, okay? You can go to cia.gov and search for the document titled Mars Exploration, May 22nd, 1984. That's the actual name of the actual document. Mars Exploration, May 22nd, 1984. Okay, so that's the name of the document. So now that you know the document is on the CIA website, it's declassified due to the Freedom of Information Act. You can go pull it up for yourself. All right. Now let's take a look at the summary of this document. For the document titled Mars Exploration, May 22nd, 1984, is a declassified CIA transcript of a remote viewing session conducted on that date. In this session, a subject referred to as Sub was directed by a monitor to describe specific geographic coordinates on Mars, approximately 1 million years BC. Now, to give you an idea of a couple things. First of all, the gentleman that's doing this remote viewing is one of the top remote viewer. Actually, at that time, was the top remote viewer in the world and was responsible for discovering an amazing amount of intelligence, which was brought back to the CIA and was verified and actually acted on in some cases. So this was like the top of the top, creme de la creme remote viewer. Okay, this wasn't some guy they just pulled off the street to run an experiment. He had already been working in projects with the CIA for quite some time, and his intelligence was verified and validated. So they took a real experienced, super professional person that was a master in remote viewing. The second thing is they gave him this target 1 million years BC. Now, in remote viewing, the actual remote viewer does not know the target. They're not given any clues on the target. The way that remote viewing works is the person that needs to gather the intel from the remote viewer or the monitor will think of a target. In this particular case, the monitor thought of the target 1 million years BC on Mars. Okay, that monitor then uses a random number generator and attaches that target to a random number generator consciously. So they click the number generator, they get a number, they attach consciously the intention behind that number is going to be 1 million years BC on Mars. They then take that number, write it down, put it inside of an envelope, boom, there it goes. The actual remote viewer or the subject is given only the target number. There's no other information. It's a white piece of paper with black numbers on it that are the target number that have been issued an actual target directly from the monitor. They know nothing about the target at this point except for these numbers. When they prepare for the remote viewing session, the first thing that they do is they see the number, and within seconds, they scribble something on the piece of paper. It's called an idiom. So they create an idiom. And from that idiom, that begins the process of remote viewing. Now, if you want to learn a lot more about remote viewing, I have a 5-hour remote viewing class on Forbidden Knowledge TV that I taught. And it was an amazing step-by-step process with actual worksheets to work on, targets to work on, and everything else. So if you want to do that, you got to get the Forbidden Knowledge TV app on your app store, and you can watch that entire 4 to 5 hour. It might be 6 hours, I think. Actually, it might be more than 5 because I think we went overtime. But you can watch the entire workshop on Forbidden Knowledge TV. Okay, so go ahead and get the app on your app store. Apple, Google Play, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, LG TV, Samsung TV, wherever you can find an app store on a TV or your phone or tablet, get the Forbidden Knowledge TV app and watch the remote viewing workshop that I did. It's amazing. You know, we have real subjects and monitors in the video, okay? And if you say, well, what makes you qualified to do such work? What makes you qualified to talk on this topic? I actually went and took classes directly from one of the people who worked in Project Stargate, and actually one of the top people, Major Ed Dames. Okay. I'm going to download this photo here and I'm going to pop it up on the screen for you real quick. Major Ed Dames is an amazing person. They actually made 2 movies about him in Hollywood. One, the most famous one is The Men That Stare at Goats. So if you want to watch The Men That Stare at Goats, it's about Major Ed Dames and his remote viewing projects and capabilities. Okay. Let me see if I can upload this image real quick here so I can pop it up on the screen. I took classes from him in Orlando, Florida. He's a great guy, great human being. He had classes. These classes were like 15 hours, man. They just went on and on. They start early in the morning, go late into night. And here's a picture with me with Major Ed Dames right here. Okay. This is probably, I don't know, maybe 7 years ago in Orlando, Florida, inside the classroom where he taught the class. Great person, really good spirit, well-versed. You can tell he's super military the way he talks. This guy uses every acronym in the book when he talks, but he's a great teacher, a really, really good teacher. So I studied with him 2 years in a row, okay, up in Orlando, Florida. Great human being. He doesn't teach anymore. He stopped teaching a few years ago. His thing now is just to relax and retire. He had talked about a couple of huge events on the horizon that he was preparing for. And other than that, he hasn't taught since. But Major Ed Dames, Project Stargate, okay? Make sure you guys look that up. Now, I'm just going to show you something here real quick before I proceed on Project Stargate. Let me just share my screen again real quick. So you can go online, look up Project Stargate. This is the Wikipedia on it, but there's CIA documents on it. There's so much information on it, okay? And the Project Stargate, you can look up and see that Major Ed Dames is actually not only on this site, but also on the CIA document talking about Project Stargate as well. Just so you can know, it's a real thing. It's not some kind of conspiracy theory, and these guys just want to talk about conspiracies all the time and psychic abilities. No, this is a real project funded and run by the CIA to gather intelligence on actual targets, foreign and domestic. Okay. And let me see if I can find the CIA document in reference to this real quick. I think this is it right here. And you guys can pull it up on your own. This is going to be the CIA document. Let's see here. On Project Stargate, not just a Wikipedia page, because, you know, Wikipedia, they're not the greatest all the time. But here is the actual CIA document. You can get this declassified document on Project Stargate as well. You'll find that Major Ed Dames, Ringo Swan, and all these other guys were involved in this project with the CIA. Okay. So it's pretty interesting that they use this guy who is a remote viewer, one of the top remote viewers in the world, and is also given a target that's 1 million years old. So now that we've established that remote viewing is a real thing, that's not only the CIA, but also the Russian government has used remote viewers as well to gather intel, foreign and domestic. So it's not a woo-woo thing. It's a scientific thing. There's a whole science behind remote viewing that I cover in my workshop. Okay. Yeah, so if you get it, all you got to do is go on Forbidden Knowledge TV and you can watch it. But I covered this in the workshop, the science behind it, the science given out by actual neuroscientists and quantum physicists as to why it actually works. Okay. It's not magic. It's quantum physics and neuroscience. So basically what happens here now, okay, so he's given the geographic coordinates to a location on Mars 1 million years BC. Okay, so that's where we kind of left off as I was kind of giving you a summary of that first CIA document talking about this declassified document talking about potential life on Mars. So what did he see? He saw pyramid-like structures. He described them as large pyramid forms situated in depressed areas. He saw obelisks, tall, thin structures reminiscent of the same obelisks that we see here on Earth in Egypt, in Nubia, Of course, they've, you've got the one that was stolen and taken to the Vatican courtyard and other places around the world as well. And you see a replica of an obelisk in Washington, D.C. So he saw obelisks. And he also was able to witness different weather patterns. He saw storms, significant dust storms, he said, affecting visibility. He was able to describe the terrain, canyons, cliffs, large flat expanses. He also mentioned that he sensed the presence of shadowy figures. He said he described them as tall and thin humanoids who appeared to be in a state of hibernation or deep sleep within some of the structures. Now that's incredible. He saw shadowy figures that were actually in this hibernation state. According to him, as supposed on this intel, it seems as if there was a problem with their race dying out. So to preserve themselves, they went into hibernation, kind of like you see in sci-fi movies when they have these hibernation chambers on spaceships traveling into deep space in order to preserve them, the human body, not let it age, and also the psychological effects of deep space travel for maybe years, maybe dozens of years. You go into this hibernation mode, right? Do you remember Interstellar, the movie, where they got to one of the planets they were trying to see if it was going to be a potential habitable planet, and there was one of their colleagues inside of a hibernation chamber trying to extend his life because he had been stuck and marooned there, and they opened the chamber, and then, of course, you know the rest of the movie. He had been in that chamber for who knows how many years. It was years and years he was in that chamber waiting for somebody to show up and release him from the chamber, the hibernation chamber, okay? Which was actually kind of a smart move to be able to preserve himself that long. So he said he saw shadowy figures described as tall, thin humanoids who appeared to be in a state of deep hibernation. Now, what's interesting for me here is the description of a tall, thin humanoid. For him to know this in the 1980s would be pretty interesting. Now, I'm not saying he wouldn't know this, but Mars has much less gravity than Earth. As a matter of fact, if I was to travel to Mars today, even at my age, I would be like a superhero. I'd be able to pick up massive boulders and throw them. I would be able to jump 15 feet in the air. Why? Because Mars has less gravity, and I grew up under the Earth's gravity. So my bones, my muscle fibers, and everything else, they are attuned to Earth's gravity to allow me to maneuver through this energy field without getting crushed, this gravitational field without being crushed. Now, if I were to go to Mars, because Mars has less gravity and I didn't grow up there, I'm now strong. I'm extremely strong because I have the strength of Earth's gravity on a much weaker gravitational field planet. So I would literally be able to jump high, run fast, lift up things and throw them. I'd be super strong, okay? But also, what would happen if I stayed on Mars? Not only would eventually my bones begin to become weaker, but also what would happen is I would actually become almost like an osteoporosis state if I didn't have anything to put pressure on my bones. This is why the astronauts in the ISS, International Space Station, have to work out all the time to keep their bones stronger, but it still doesn't work. They still end up coming back, needing wheelchairs to move around when you go up there for a year or so. Their bodies haven't been used to any gravity. Now, let's say I stayed on Mars and I found a mate, and we made it, and we had a baby. Here's where the tall, shadowy figures thing gets very interesting. If you have a baby on Mars, that first generation will be pretty strong, not as strong as you, but pretty strong. By the next generation, the baby will be able to grow up and become an extremely tall, slim figure because of the gravitational field on Mars, and will be weak, significantly weaker than the previous two generations. Only able to manipulate the environment based on the gravitational field and the strength that person had obtained growing up there directly, from the embryonic stage all the way up to a grown person. That would be then come the norm in terms of strength on Mars. But science has shown, modern biologists have shown, their hypothesis on raising people on Mars from birth is that they will become tall, slim figures. That's from biology books and science documentaries and everything else. So it's pretty interesting that he was able to come up with that description in 1984 as to them being tall, shadowy figures. Okay? It's just wild. So the session involved the monitor providing specific coordinates, prompting the subject to describe corresponding impressions. So as he's going through this process and he's naming things, now the monitor is getting involved and say, okay, well, check this, check that. And now he's giving more intel and more feedback. The descriptions were detailed, focusing on both the physical environment and the perceived entities. So he went into extreme detail about these entities, and they appeared to be dark-skinned figures that were in these hibernation chambers. And the document is part of the CIA's exploration into remote viewing, which, like I said before, is a practice that gives a person the ability to perceive distant or unseen targets through extrasensory perception. And the actual session reflects the agency's interest in applying remote viewing to gather intelligence on ET locations throughout the known solar system and even throughout the actual universe. This isn't the only one that they've ever done. They've done several of these, and they've gotten intel on what they believe to be potential life on other planets in the actual universe, not just in the Milky Way galaxy. This is just one of many, many remote viewing experiments they utilized to do this. Now, so that's pretty cool. That's pretty interesting that, a government agency would invest, who knows how many millions or hundreds of millions of dollars into a project for quite some time to gather intelligence by using the human mind, because the mind can travel outside of space and time. Okay. There's another experiment. Before I go on about Mars, I'm going to get into the Mars science data, because I'm now going to show you how there could have been life on Mars a million years ago. We're going to go into that tonight. Okay. Now we're going to do that. So now let's take a look at, this situation here on Mars. It's a damaged planet. It's got issues because of geological disasters. It has different types of elements in the soil and the atmosphere that lead us to believe, us meaning astrophysicists and researchers like myself, that something could have gone awry on Mars more than once. It could have been a geological disaster, and second time, who knows how long ago, there could have been some type of war on Mars. Well, we're going to look into the science data. And why would we think there would be a war? Well, there's a couple of reasons. The first reason is Mars is known as the god of war. So many cultures here on Earth had given Mars the name that it was the god of war, right? That there's wars on Mars, wars in the heavens leading to Mars. And I mean, no matter where you go, there's about 6 different cultures around the world that reference and revere Mars, but always reference it at some point as being in a state of war or bloodshed. Pretty interesting stuff. So now you say, okay, well, what does it have to do with it, being really a real war? Well, when you look into the science data coming back from the REMS unit, coming back from the satellite data and also the rover data, they discovered something on Mars that's mind-blowing. They discovered xenon, but not just any xenon. They discovered weapons-grade xenon in abundant sources and in abundant amounts in the atmosphere and in the soil. Weapons-grade xenon is a byproduct of nuclear war. And they're still scratching their heads today trying to figure out how did that get there in those abundant amounts. They're still trying to figure out what could have possibly happened that would release weapons-grade xenon into the atmosphere and into the soil on Mars. It's a real head scratcher. How, when, where, why? All you can do is point to some of these ancient cultures and look at some of the references to wars. That's the only reference we can try to tie it together, or just see, maybe could these stories be accurate? Could these not be myths? Could these be truths? Riddled, kind of riddled with myths. Could they be intertwined in some way? Could some of this stuff actually have happened a long time ago? Human beings on Earth are a brand new species. We just arrived here. If you look at the human race on a geological clock, on geological time scales, we haven't even been here for 1 full minute tick on the actual clock. We literally just arrived. We're the new kids on the block. There are civilizations out there that could be millions of years ahead of us. And there could have been one on this very same planet that was maybe hundreds of thousands of years ahead of us. And it could have been us ourselves. You know, when geological disasters happen, it's sometimes you get a fresh restart. You get a restart. You start over again. Imagine right now if there was an EMP bomb dropped over most of the biggest cities in the world, and it knocked out all the electronics globally. Because if you have anything with a chip in it, that chip is going to be fried. Every single car now runs on a chip, except for the ones from like 1982 and back. Not many of those still running today. So the majority of the vehicles would be down. All cell phones, computers, everything, all technology would go down, except for some of the ones that might be have EMP protection, which aren't that many. But what will happen to civilization? Civilization will, at first, be in chaos, fear, right? Now, I know how to use a cell phone. Right? I've got one right here. I know how to use it, but I don't know how to make it. You know how to use a cell phone, but you might not know how to make a cell phone. And the components that are in this cell phone are from a combined technological understanding of, who knows, dozens of people's ideas and information based on talking about like the parts, each individual part and the pieces that are in here that go together to make a working phone is not just from one mind. It's from dozens of minds. So all of a sudden, one person can't just say, oh, you know, I got a solution. I'm gonna make a cell phone. But what about the tower? Now the towers are all down. Who's gonna put the towers back up? Who's gonna bring the towers back online? Who's gonna be able to coordinate with anyone to make a phone call to anybody or text message to anybody to coordinate anything to start to kickstart civilization? So what I'm trying to tell you is there's gonna be a time period where, like a good stock going up, we were at the peak, and then all of a sudden we begin to crash. We begin to crash technologically. We've got technology laying around all around us, but it's absolutely worthless to us. It's just giant paperweights and stuff we can't use. We've got to go back to working with our hands. We've got to go back to farming. We've got to go back to all those kind of things, you know? And you can't even use tractors or backhoes or anything like that, or the plow is going to be a manual plow. You know, if you can even find the seeds. It's going to be really strange trying to start fresh again. Eventually, second, third generation, if the situation hasn't been resolved, they like, man, we don't even need technology. We just, you know, they're rebuilding from scratch. Now imagine this happening on another planet or many different planets. It can happen just like that. I remember back, I think it was 2013 or 14, Apophis flew by Earth. Apophis is a gigantic asteroid about the size of Texas. It came in between the moon and Earth atmosphere. It just swung right by. NASA didn't tell anybody, but it was trackable. I had tracked it. I talked about it on Instagram in 2011, 2012, and the beginning of 2013. Posted about it as well on Facebook. And then the day that it came by, it barely went through the distance between Earth and the moon and went back into deep space. Now, what's so important about that? Apophis, when it came through the last time, scientists and astrophysicists say it might have slipped through a gravitational keyhole. And if it slipped through a gravitational keyhole, that means that its orbit on its next return, and I think 2036 or something like that, it could be in a direct collision course with Earth. In other words, instead of scraping by and barely missing us, it could strike the planet, which is why Obama had that mission when he was in office, when they learned about this, to land thrusters on asteroids and try to shift their orbits. You can't blow up an asteroid or a comet because you'll just have a million pieces of rock coming at you, and they will speckle the entire planet and create fires and destruction all over the planet. So what you do is you land rockets on it of some type, and you turn them on, and they thrust, and the thrust shifts the orbit of the object so that on its next return, it misses the planet Earth. That mission was sent out, and I think they had run a test and accomplished that mission on an actual test asteroid, not Apophis, but another one. So imagine if it slips through the gravitational keyhole on its next return and strikes Earth, like Mars, literally. So for us to think that we are the first, the last, the everything of civilization that ever existed anywhere in the known universe is pretty egotistical. I believe that there have been many, many, many civilizations before us, not only on Earth, but even other places within the known Milky Way galaxy and even beyond. Okay, even beyond. So let's take a look at some of the data. Okay, let's take a look at some of the data. I want to pull up some science data on Mars itself, so we can begin to understand what Mars is really all about, what type of atmosphere, what elements are in the atmosphere, does it have a magnetic field? Okay, so just take some time with me tonight. This is an important podcast. I want you guys to just take some time and watch some of this content. I got a few clips that I want to play tonight, and I think they're really, really important and very key. All right, so we're looking here. United Family of Anomaly Hunters, by the way, that logo is a logo for our formed organization called the United Family of Anomaly Hunters, okay? So you can see here in the inner solar system habitable zones, you can see Mars is one of the habitable planets, okay? Now, look at the methane release in northern summer, okay? Let me pause this for a second. Let's go back. Let me get back to this methane release. This is important to understand. This methane, according to scientists, not according to Billy Carson, according to actual scientists, they say that this methane, with spikes at different particular times, is a result of biological life. Biological life is their exact term, and you can look it up. Biological life is the cause, in their opinion, their professional opinion, top scientists in the world researching this Mars data that are actually on the mission program say that this methane shows some form of life. As you know, methane is excreted gas. So, you know, on Earth, we have methane from cows farting. They say that's causing global warming. Well, on Mars, something is passing gas. There's something on Mars passing gas, all right? So it's pretty interesting. So they have the methane. Oh, by the way, what is the hottest temperature recorded on Mars? In the summer at the equator, Spirit rover picked up 98 degrees, I believe, either 98 or 99. 98 or 99 degrees by the Spirit rover, a rover that now is defunct and offline, but gathered that data. You can look it up on any science account. So it's pretty crazy that we think that Mars is this cold, dry rock, but it appears to be not as cold and as dry as we thought, especially in certain areas. Does it get cold on Mars? Yes, it does. But there are articles that came out a few years ago when they had that cold snap in the Midwest. Chicago, Wisconsin, those two places were actually colder than Mars on specific days. Okay. So you can see here, just a lot of stuff. Curiosity finds life building blocks on Mars. You're looking at frozen ice water there on the Martian surface. And the methane sources, as they're talking about here. This is the science data directly from the NASA site. The outgassing of methane coming out into the atmosphere, I believe, is coming from bacteria. I think there's an extreme amount of bacteria on the surface of Mars. And I also believe that the next announcement of life on Mars is going to be bacteria, okay? We can see the fresh water. Now, this is important. This is not Billy Carson's data. This is the data from Caltech, the people who are working on the Mars missions. Fresh water exists on Mars. Salt water exists on Mars. I remember about maybe 4 years ago, they came up with a press release in the middle of the day, press conference in the middle of the day, and they showed a mountain with water running down the side of the mountain on Mars, and made an official statement that yes, there are billions of tons, their exact statement, of liquid water on Mars. Billions of tons. Either they said billions or millions, one of the two. That's a lot of water. They found a 12-hectare lake about 3 years ago and made that public as well. So there's a lot of water on Mars. Mars is not a cold, dry rock. Atomic hydrogen is found on Mars. Okay. Atomic oxygen is found on Mars. Yes, there's oxygen on Mars. So you can see that the oxygen is there. And you can also see that some of the oxygen still leaks into space. Now, what's interesting is there's something creating oxygen still to this very day. What could that be? What could be creating oxygen on Mars? By geological timescales and the rate in which it's being leaked into space, there should be no oxygen left today. However, something keeps generating more oxygen in Martian atmosphere. There goes the atomic carbon. Okay, so you can see the carbon footprint. Evidence proves ancient Mars had a robust atmosphere. A robust atmosphere. So we can see here that the science data, the probe data from the REMS unit has transmitted back a lot of incredible data showing that Mars at one point was very, very, very similar to Earth. Now, this is showing you right here, this image is showing you something very good. It's showing you that Mars does have a weakened magnetic field, but the cosmic rays and the radiation are bent around the planet because of the speed of the planet in its own orbit on its axis and the speed of the planet's orbit around our sun. It creates something called bow shock. And so at first they were saying nothing can live on the surface, nothing can live on the surface of Mars. And then they discovered something crazy, that yes, the what would destroy our DNA, the radiation that would destroy DNA, is being deflected and bent around the planet. So they started looking deeper into the magnetic field of Mars and found that it had many localized magnetic fields. They also discovered that there's a third ozone layer in the atmosphere, which is extremely important for sustaining a stable atmosphere. Okay? And you can break it out to hydrogen, oxygen, reflected sunlight. It's all there. And it has a localized, there we go, localized magnetic fields, which are also helping to bend harmful radiation around the planet. So yes, organic life can sustain. Now, these are actual I'm getting a little tongue twisted there. These are the northern lights, put it that way, okay? So these are the northern lights, what we have on Earth, but this is what it would look like on Mars. So every magnetic field creates its aurora borealis. So it creates its own charged particles that are coming from the sun, get caught up in the magnetic field of Mars. And when that happens, you get these incredible lights in the sky, just the same way it actually happens on Earth, okay? I knew I'd get the word out eventually. I got a little tongue tied there. All right. The ultraviolet aurora on Mars. So you can see that Mars is a lot like Earth, still today, a lot like Earth. And of course, we know there's a lot of liquid water on Mars. Okay, they've discovered it. This is from that press release I told you about, the mountain with water flowing. Okay, that's New York Times. Hydrothermal vents on Mars could have supported life. NASA confirms evidence that liquid water flows on Mars. On today's Mars, specifically, that was September 28th, 2015. You can see the flood waters of Mars. You can see the flood patterns. And I'm going to tell you why all this is important shortly. Turn my air on. It's important because we're going to talk about who wants to go live on Mars and why. And why would they want to go live on a cold, dry rock? There should be nothing there. Everything should be dead, non-existent. Although we know that's not the truth. Now, we're looking at an area on Mars called Cydonia. It's called Cydonia, which actually is a term, an ancient word used for Cairo, which we know now is in Africa, located at a place called Egypt, right? Cairo. But this place is called Cydonia. And there are things there that were discovered by missions to Mars. In the 70s, they discovered a face on Mars, a gigantic, massive face, and some other structures that don't look naturally formed. So the geometry is there, the 19.5-degree angles are there, the 5-sided D&M pyramids there, which we're going to talk about tonight. I'm going to show you the D&M pyramid in detail. I'm going to show you the mathematics behind the D&M pyramid, which is just pretty wild. A lot of geometry right here. Now, there's a place in Avebury, UK, that has an area that they've taken dirt and soil and moved them around and created these mounds and these anomalies on Earth in Avebury in the UK. Salisbury Hill is what it's called. And in that location, they've recreated this scene on Mars, but except that was done a very long time ago. Matter of fact, it made a clip. This information made it to the news. Let's take a quick look at this clip for a second. Check this out. It runs for a few minutes, so just be patient and listen to this because I think it's very important.
Of many researchers who've studied NASA photographs of Mars transmitted by the Viking spacecraft. Several photographs show a face staring out into the cosmos. It seems impossible, but as correspondent Carla Wohl reports, there are clues here on Earth that add an intriguing new dimension to the face on Mars.
Here in the countryside of south-central England, in a hamlet named Avebury, stand 5,000-year-old stone structures of unknown origin. There are also circular mounds built for a purpose no one has deciphered. But now, an intriguing new theory suggests that these mysterious monuments are connected to similar formations on the surface of Mars.
The complex on Mars is exceedingly important in my view because it's highlighted by the presence of the famous face on Mars, which acted as a beacon and probably attracted our attention to the whole area.
David Percy is an author, filmmaker, and paranormal researcher. He believes that this face is not a trick of light and shadow, that is part of a vast complex of Martian structures created by intelligent life.
This is the whole of the complex. Over here to the west, we have an area which we call the city, and over here to the right is a crater, and beneath it, down here, a spiral mound, and over to the west, a pyramid which is 5-sided.
In 1991, while researching the Avebury crop circle phenomenon, Percy made a startling connection.
I took an Ordnance Survey map of the area and superimposed it over the NASA photograph of the complex in its entirety and found that it matched.
The most striking match was made here at the famous Avebury Circle.
It's about 1/4 mile in diameter, and around about 5,000 years ago they shifted approximately 4 million cubic feet of material. One would want to ask why. My hypothesis is that this is a copy of the crater on Mars.
That's a big stretch for a lot of people to believe that this is the duplicate of something on Mars.
Sure.
How do you get there?
Well, this isn't the only item that we're dealing with here. We have just a short distance away Salisbury Hill. It's the same relative size as the spiral mound on Mars and is the same relative distance to the crater. It would have taken about 700 people 10 years to build this. It was equivalent in effort to putting a man on the moon in the 60s.
Avebury Circle and Salisbury Hill do bear an uncanny resemblance to their counterparts on Mars. But I found some of Percy's other theories harder to accept.
David, I have to tell you that this, to me, looks like an ordinary country path.
Yes, I agree with you. It is, in fact, an ordinary country path, but it happens to be the analogue of the top ridge of the pyramids in the city on Mars.
But if you really want to see something, don't you think you'll see it? I mean, can't you be making things because you want it to fit your theory?
Yes, of course that can be done, and the people who look at this information have to see for themselves. You've got to explain, for instance, why that crater is positioned exactly where it is on this planet. It isn't at a random place. It is a very accurately measured point between the North Pole and the equator. If you draw a line from the wall down to the south to the spiral mound, and then up again to that tetrahedral rim pyramid, you get just under 19.5 degrees. If you do exactly the same thing at Avebury, you get precisely the same measurement. You cannot get such a correspondence just by wishful thinking.
How do you think it was created? Who do you think created it, and why?
Clearly, this complex on Mars that we're talking about was built by intelligent beings who went to Mars and built the complex because they were working on a project. And this project, in my view, concerned the emerging beings on this planet.
Percy believes that the extraterrestrials came to Avebury centuries ago to change the course of human evolution, that they conducted experiments in genetic engineering.
I believe they constructed the complex to undertake a genetic project that concerned the emerging beings on this planet. And I believe that that spot marks the birthplace of human beings.
All right. Pretty interesting. Say, hey, got to look at all different perspectives. Very old video from a very old show. But as you can see, a striking thing. Now, you can go to google.com and type in Avebury, UK ordnance map, which I did. You can then download it. It's available as a free PDF download still today. You can then take an image of Cydonia on Mars, where the famous face on Mars is located. You can go to nasa.gov or Caltech or JPL and download that image, or European Space Agency, depending on where it's at. You can just Google it. You'll find it. Cydonia on Mars, raw image. And then you can take your computer and use your computer to virtually overlay Avebury, UK over Cydonia. And guess what you'll find when you scale down the image to the right size? You'll find all the angles are there, and you'll find that the anomalies match perfectly. So you'll find an analog of Avebury, UK here on Earth directly at Cydonia on Mars. Pretty crazy stuff. That's a hell of a damn coincidence. That's a hell of a coincidence. And I don't believe in coincidences. So that's pretty crazy. All right. But back to what I was showing you, this science data is just really, really incredible. This five-sided pyramid, the science, the geometry behind it is not random. It shows that this five-sided pyramid was intelligently made, that it's not just some random wind and rain and flooding to create it. Okay, so you can see the geometry behind the face on Mars. It's just pretty crazy stuff. Phobos is a moon that orbits Mars. Now, Phobos is very interesting because I couldn't find a clip of this today, but on CNET, Buzz Aldrin was in an interview and he talked about Phobos and he talked about the anomaly on Phobos. Maybe I'll do a part 2 to this video and show you some more crazy stuff about Mars. He talked about the fact that what will they say when they found out who really put that there? Now, when they sent a couple of missions to take a look at Phobos and scan it, they realized that Phobos, based on its size, didn't have enough mass to maintain a stable orbit around Mars. And they're predicting that it could be in a degrading orbit, that at some point in the future, Phobos could burn up in Mars's atmosphere and crash down to the planet in pieces. But they're saying that this object appears to be hollow. And even more than that, when they analyze what it looks like on the outside, it doesn't fit the characteristics of a typical, moon. So, part 2. When I do part 2 on this, I'm gonna go into the Phobos story because that's a whole deep story all by itself. I'm gonna go deep into Phobos. I'm gonna show you the missions to Phobos and what happened with one of the missions that tried to get to it. You're gonna be scratching your head on that one, and more information about the other aspects of Mars. There's just so much to talk about tonight. I'm gonna keep on going. Okay, I have a lot more to go. All right, there's a lot more to go. So just bear with me tonight. It's going to be a little bit, we're going overtime tonight. There's a lot of information here, okay? Now, in terms of going to Mars, it seems as if we might have already been there before. Gene Cernan, one of the former astronauts, had been talking to his buddy Buzz, and he may have had a Freudian slip on an interview, kind of alluding to the fact that we may have already been to Mars. Okay, we meaning human beings. So let's take a look at this short clip.
I believe we should do it in a logical stepping stone process. At the end of this year, well, Buzz and I have disagreed on a lot of things, and it's certainly that one. Although Buzz does want to go back to Mars, and I support that. But I believe we should do it in a logical stepping stone process. At the end of this year.
All right. He says Buzz wants to go back to Mars. That was interesting. He said Buzz want to go back to Mars. Now, according to current science, if you watch that full interview by Gene Cernan, you'll see he's not talking about sending probes or satellites. He was talking about people. He was talking about actual people. Okay. So maybe I'll do a part 2. There'll be a part 2 on this one. All right. Looking forward to doing a part 2. We're going to go deep into it, into even deeper aspects. I got a lot more tonight, though. We're not done yet. We have more tonight. Okay. We got more. So let me get back into some of my talking points here. Okay. We talked about the remote viewing. All right. Which is huge. Let's talk about the costs. I want you guys to use some logic. Okay. Let's use a little bit of logic. So Earth is a beautiful planet. Even with all the chaos and the craziness that goes on a day-by-day basis, it's still a very, very beautiful planet. There's still incredible places to go and see. It's breathtaking. The planet is breathtaking. And people who have a lot of money who have the ability to travel all over this planet and see the most incredible sights and experience the most incredible places and live in the most incredible places. They're all, not all, but a lot of them are thinking about going to Mars on a one-way trip. That makes you scratch your head because Mars is supposed to be a very cold, dry rock, according to what we've been taught. Now you're seeing that I'm breaking the science down. You now know that's really not the case. It's not a cold, dry rock. But we've all been programmed to think that it was. This cold, dry, red rock that was just a worthless piece of rock floating through space. But you look at the missions that have gone to Mars, and you start adding up the money, and you go, wow, there's something going on up here. If this place was just a cold, dry rock, nobody will be investing this kind of money to send missions there. You have the Mariner program in the 1960s through the 1970s. Mariner 4 through 9 combined in the hundreds of millions of dollars. Okay. Now that right now today would be billions of dollars. Then also they spent another $3.4 billion. The Viking program, 1970s. In the 1970s. $1 billion they spent in 1970, which is about $7.8 billion today. Then you have the Mars Observer in 1993. This mission failed. It's a failed mission. About $980 million in the 1990s, worth $2 billion today. Then they sent the Mars Global Surveyor, the Mars Pathfinder, the Mars Climate Orbiter, the Mars Polar Lander between the 1990s to the 2000s. Each one was a few $100 million. And in today's money, it would be $2 to $3 billion that they spent with inflation. Then they sent the Mars Odyssey 2001, around $300 million in the early 2000s. Mars Exploration Rover, Spirit and Opportunity launched in 2003, $820 million. And that was, think about that, the early 2000s. What would it be now with inflation? It would be in the billions. The Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter launched in 2005, $720 million. Today would be maybe 1 or 2 billion. Maybe more than that, maybe 3 or 4, because it's almost at a damn billion. Phoenix, they launched the Phoenix in 2007, $420 million. Come on. That's definitely at least a billion by now. Mars Science Laboratory, Curiosity, launched in 2011, often cited at about $2.5 to $2.6 billion in 2010. What would that be now? Probably almost double with inflation. Then they launched the Maven in 2013, $671 million. The Insight launched in 2018, $814 million. The Mars 2020 Perseverance and Ingenuity, which is the helicopter that they launched to Mars along with the rover, okay, launched in 2020, $2.7 billion. NASA has spent between 30 and 50 billion in today's dollars on those missions. That doesn't even include the Soviet Union, who's already sent missions to Mars, Mars 1, 2, Mars 3, and others. They all have gone into the billions of dollars. Then you have the European Space Agency, the Mars Express, launched in 2003, 300 to 350 million. The ExoMars program, which was the Trace Gas Orbiter, launched in 2016. The ExoTGO, another 300 to 400 million dollars. The ExoMars rover, $1 billion when completed. India, the ISRO, Mars Orbiter Mission, 2013, they launched for $73 to $75 million. The Mangalyaan 2, they launched another one. You got China, the Taiwan, the Tiamat was the name of this lander. They launched it in 2020, $1 billion. United Arab Emirates, the UAE, United Arab Emirates, the UAE, they launched one in 2020 for 200 million. Putting it all together, we're talking about billions and billions of dollars spent to go to Mars, okay? Billions and billions of dollars. So if you were thinking about going to Mars and you want to find out data, there's a lot of data out there that's available to the general public about Mars, just like I've gathered for you in tonight's podcast. I don't think that people are going to go to a cold, dry rock that have billions of dollars to travel this incredible, beautiful planet and see all the creature comforts of life and live the most glorious, glamorous life here, to go live on a cold, dry rock and die in a tin can. I just don't believe that's the actual mission. I believe they have more data points, more information, more intelligence. In terms of intelligence, I'm talking about information than the average person, which allowed them to make an educated decision on wanting to go and live there until their last days, okay? So there's a lot more to this Mars thing. There's a lot to this Mars thing. It's not just, I want to be an explorer and go live on a cold planet that has no oxygen and die inside of a tin can. I think there's a lot more going on. NASA released a press release statement about maybe 7 years ago now. And in that statement, they said that the soil on Mars is better for growing crops than the soil on Earth. Now, how in the world would they even know that, number one? That's just wild that they would even make a statement like that. So that movie that came out about Mars, and the guy was growing I forgot the actor's name now. He's growing the potatoes, and he's got to create this situation where he's, got the right conditions for the potatoes to grow. I think it's probably inaccurate, because according to the science data, he could have just planted it right inside the soil on Mars. But, that's what they're talking about. Now, so Mars atmosphere obviously has a lot of gases in it. So it has a real atmosphere. It has carbon dioxide, oxygen, argon, nitrogen, carbon monoxide, water vapor, methane, and other noble gases, just like Earth has, okay? If you're on Earth, you're not breathing in 100% oxygen. You're breathing in argon, helium, nitrogen, carbon dioxide, water vapor, methane. You're breathing all that in. I think Earth has about 21% oxygen. If you breathe 100% oxygen, you're not going to live that long, okay? So you're not breathing in 100% oxygen. You're breathing in other atmospheric gases along with the oxygen, okay? But yeah, so this is pretty interesting. I mean, we're talking about a planet that potentially harbored life in the past, that potentially could be harboring life even still today, based on some of the science data. We've seen creatures called extremophiles here on Earth live in more harsh conditions than exist on Mars. I'll say that again. We have actually seen and witnessed and documented extremophiles. These are animals that have the capability of living in the most extreme conditions, like near the openings of volcanic vents, deep, deep beneath the ocean, breathing in toxic sulfur. We've seen animals on the surface of the Earth that are able to eat and live off of things that a biological, what we call a normal biological entity, whether it's an animal or an insect, would die eating or living off of. So we know these extremophiles exist on Earth. So what would stop them from existing on Mars? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Now, they sent a mission to Mars that they believe, and the scientist that was running that mission believes, detected life. Okay? It was the Viking missions that I talked about earlier that went out there in the 1970s. Okay? The Viking landers each carried a suite of biological experiments designed to detect signs of microbial metabolism in the Martian soil. One of these experiments, called the labeled release, the LR experiment, yielded results that mission scientist Dr. Gilbert Levin interpreted as evidence of living microorganisms. And this man went and fought tooth and nail to get his science released to the world. He went on interviews. He went on his own recordings and put recordings out. He made official statements. He put out information to journalists. His science data showed that there was microbial life existing on Mars in 1976. His information was locked. He was gagged, and they locked his science away after him coming out with information that aliens do exist. These microbial life forms that he detected in his science unit, his science kit on the Viking lander. Okay. And this guy still to this very day, well, I don't know if he's still alive at this exact moment, but the last time I saw him was probably about 4 years ago on a video. He was pissed. He was extremely pissed and angry still that life was discovered in our solar system on Mars with his science kit, and it was obfuscated, blocked, and gagged. Why? Nobody knows. His entire science team who built that thing and built the science kit were extremely frustrated and extremely pissed off. Now, the next opportunity we have to get this information is going to come from the newest rover that's on Mars. And I believe that within the next 3 to 5 years, they will announce that aliens exist. They will announce that the science kit on the most recent rover is going to release the information back to Earth, release the data back to Earth that, yes, we have found bacteria on Mars. Microbial life exists on Mars. So decades later, we're going to get this information. It's going to come out, and we're going to find out that, yes, life does exist on Mars. They're not going to tell you anything bigger than microbes or bacteria, but they will admit that life exists on Mars. That's a forthcoming announcement to be made within the next 3 to 5 years. Okay, which doesn't shock me because we're heading into the age of Aquarius. So all things are going to be opened up to us little by little. We're going to get trickles of information and disclosure little by little by little. Okay, so it might not be the disclosure that we want, but at least it's something. But they will come out and tell you that, yes, aliens have been discovered. They are microbes on Mars. And that's going to be within the next 3 to 5 years when we get the science data back from the most recent mission. Okay. All right. Now, a lot of information. I've been giving you a lot of information tonight. This is a lot of data. Okay. It's a lot of data. But I wanted to give you a lot of data because when people talk about things like Mars and stuff like that, it's like, oh, I wonder, is this stuff, if this stuff is even real? You have so much data here, you can research for years. Okay. And now we're going to take a journey to Mars. I want you guys to take a journey to Mars with me. We're going to have a little bit of a look around. All right. If some of you have been following me for some time, you remember I had an incident that led me to a website called worldwidetelescope.org, which if you research the domain, you'll discover that it exists long before I had that experience. And that website is still in existence today. And this website is what led me into anomaly hunting, looking for anomalies from space probe data and rover data. Okay. Let me pull this up and pull it into the screen here. And we're going to take a journey. You guys are going to take a trip with me to Mars right now. We're going to go on a journey to Mars. All right. Let me share my screen here. All right. And we'll pull up this window. Okay, here we go. We're on worldwidetelescope.org. Back when I first found it, you had to install the software to make it work. Now you can actually just use the web-based version of it. So let me pull it up now that you've got it up on your screen. Let me find it so I can actually get it working here. Hold on a second. One thing about these Macintoshes, they don't run tabs the way I like. Okay, so I'm going to the WW client. Let me just see if that, okay, that might open up a new window. So hold on a second. Let me get back to my original screen here. Okay. Open these windows around and these tabs around is crazy. Let me see where we are. Okay, so yes, you can't see that. Okay, so let me make one more adjustment here. I've got this pulled out, so I'm going to change my screen to a different screen. So hang tight with me one second, guys, as I get this up so that we can actually go on this journey together. All right. All right, there we go. Move that around here. Okay, stop sharing screen. And now let me get this other screen that I've got up. Because when I opened it, it popped a new window really quickly. So when you click on web client, it's going to pop you another browser tab open. So I had to reshare in the current open tab. Now I've got to get back to that, that web client, which is right here. Let me just make sure I'm in right. Yeah, that's it. Perfect. Okay. Let me move it around. Yeah, that's it. You guys can see it moving. Perfect. All right. Now, let me get in here. So now what you see here is I'm inside of the worldwidetelescope.org/web client. And at the top is where you have your options to go look at: constellation, solar system, all night sky surveys. You know, I mean, I can just keep going. This is crazy stuff here. You can go into all these things. When I got into the data, Mars was on the first part of this scroll, not the back end, but you can go to page 2 at the top, the very top right. You can click on 2. Then you'll get in here and you can see these other extensions here. You got Mars and you got panoramas. If you click on panoramas, it will then take you into these panoramas. Oops, let me go back up. Go back to Mars. I'm sorry. Let me go to Mars. And then click on these panoramas. Here we go. Panoramas. So now we have different panoramas. We have Perseverance rover, Curiosity rover. Perseverance rover is a rover that's going to announce life on Mars in 3 to 5 years. Curiosity rover, Phoenix, Spirit, Opportunity. Let's check out Spirit rover. Now, when I click on Spirit rover, at the very top, I can now see these different areas that the rover has gone to, and I can check out these areas, okay? So, for example, I can go into McMurdo Valley, and I can look around. Now, that's in 3D, so let me come out of the 3D version of McMurdo. Okay, now, this is Mars true color, okay? This is a true color image of Mars, not red, not charred red or anything like that. A true color image. This is probably, might be your first time, your very first time seeing the real color of Mars. This is it right here, okay? And I'm looking, we're looking from the mast cam on Spirit, looking out over the Martian plain, and we're able to see the wheel marks from the rover leading back here. And that white stuff is actually ice water. So as it's been moving around, it's been breaking up the surface, and right beneath the surface is water. In this particular area, it's cold. Obviously, it must be at least 30 degrees or less. And you can see that it's very icy right here, okay? So you're looking at the ice tracks leading up to the rover itself. The mass cam is up high above. Now it's looking straight down. And you can see the rover tracks leading up to this position that it's in. Let's look at one of the first anomalies that's out here, okay? So I can get it to this X. I haven't been on this in a while, so you guys got to forgive me as I'm just trying to remember exactly how to make this thing zoom in and zoom out, especially on a Mac, which is not exactly, oh, there we go. Not as easy. Okay. Here's one I remember here. Okay. Now, this object right here that you see in the center of the screen, it's a strange formation to me because you see it has two pieces, and one piece has flanges on it that are red with a white top that looks like it's kind of cigar shaped. To the right of that, there's another thicker object. It's coming up out of the sand, and there's something going across that's attached to this other piece of this object that has these red flanges on it. Now, you may be like, oh, that's not a big deal. But for people that have looked at this like geologists, it is a big deal because they're saying this particular anomaly does not match the surrounding terrain or rocks. It's something that should be cataloged, and we did have it cataloged because it's very, very strange. Okay, that's just one. Let me zoom back out again. And we're going to take a look over here, back in here, on top of this hill. Now, another object directly in the center of the screen that has geometry. It has geometry, it has shapes, and it doesn't look quite like a rock. Do we know what it is? No, we don't know what it is. All we can do is, the more we analyze it, the more we realize this piece here and the piece even beneath it just seem very strange. We aren't exactly sure what they are, but when you really let your eyes settle into it, you can see the geometry, you can see the curvature, you can see that it's hollow beneath, hollow in these holes towards the top area. They could be rocks, but they could be something else. So they were cataloged. This object here in the center of the screen appears to be something very strange as well. We don't exactly know what it is, but it was cataloged as a potential anomaly because the shape of it just doesn't seem to fall in line with the majority of the surrounding terrain and rocks. Not even the color. The color is totally different too. Now let me zoom out because there's some more stuff that's a little bit more obvious. I've been navigating this I haven't navigated this site for a while, so it's been a good minute since I've been on here. Let me get back to the areas where I remember there were some anomalies to look at. Let's see here. Okay, not here. I got to go over a little bit more to this other area. I'll find it. Hang tight, guys. This is pretty cool. We're panning left and right. Here's one up here on this hill. Okay, if you see this sticking out of the top of the hill, This object's got a curve, straight line, and the curve comes around. It's shiny like metal. It's shining in the sun. The sun is coming out of the, in this particular image, out of the, what would be from my position would be the west, coming down on this object, making this shine. It could just be a shiny rock sticking out of the hill, but it looks bent and it looks strange. So nobody knows exactly what it is. Now, when you come down the hill, you find some more strange anomalies right here. I'm going to see if I can zoom in a little bit more. This object right in the center of the screen, which looks, I'm going to use this term, but don't hold me to this term. I'm just saying that it looks like a screen of some type right here on top of a gooseneck that might be bent or broken. Now, I'm not saying that's what it is. I'm only trying to describe what I'm seeing to you, just so you can know exactly what I'm looking at in case you can't see my cursor. All right, but this object is a flat screen area with geometry making a perfect rectangle. It has a backing to it, and then it goes straight down into the ground. Just a very strange anomaly. There's another one over here, something strange. Now, this gets blurry when you zoom in because we're zooming in from very far away. But when you look at this object in the center of the screen, it just seems like it doesn't match. It seems very strange. I'll show you one more, and then I'm going to go into a slide show and show you some of the the more dynamic anomalies that we've discovered that also comes with their sources as well, their source links. Okay, I got to zoom out. You see that pointed top right there, the top of this hill? Something's underneath this soil. All right, let's see here. Let's get down into this. Oops. Let me get down into this valley. It's been a good minute since I've been on here. Anybody can get on here and anybody can surf this site and they can have a good look around and see see things for themselves. This is just one of dozens of places that you can go look. I hadn't been in here in so long. I just made a full 360 circle. I hadn't been in here. Oh, here, this is where I want to go. Okay, here we go. Hadn't been in here so long. Just want to take a look around. All right, here we go. Look directly here in the center of this screen. Now, right in the center, there's an object. Now, I'm going to make a statement here. I'm not telling you that this is what it is. I'm just describing what I see here in the middle of the screen, direct dead center, so you can see for yourself and make a decision for yourself. But it's tent-like. It kind of looks like a tent. It's got, lines going straight down, an archway connecting in the middle to make what you might call a roof. I'm not saying that's what it is. I'm only describing kind of what I'm seeing so you can maybe see, take a look at it, let your eyes relax on this image and take a look at it. Just a very strange image there, very strange anomaly. And this other object right here in the middle now, center of the screen, which is very, very strange as well. Just some strange things here. But now what we'll do is, let me go back up a level here. Hold on a second. Let's check out opportunity for a second. I just want to show you guys. What if it's going to download? Some of these images are so huge. These video files, these stitched files are so huge. It takes a second for them to load sometimes. This is, what area was this? Payson panorama. Opportunities end. Let's see here. Oops. Okay. This is an area that you're looking at here that I believe has a lot of moisture. You can see this color. This is true color. There's no red haze here. They haven't turned it red. you're looking at the actual color of the minerals and the things that are here on top of the soil and the rock. And when you zoom into them, you might get an understanding why there is methane in the atmosphere. Because in my opinion, and this is my personal opinion, these things here represent the same type of life forms we see on Earth. Algae and fungus and so forth that do release gas and do create spikes in methane, especially during the summertime when they blossom and they bloom. And you can clearly see that they're covering these rocks. In my opinion, this is alive. My personal opinion. I didn't hear from a scientist. I didn't hear from an astrophysicist or anybody on the mission program. My personal opinion, I believe that what you're looking at here are living organisms on top of rocks and soil on the Martian surface. And also there's water here. There's another anomaly right here as well. Now, let's see another one here. Let's see. There's another beautiful crater here. Mars is really a beautiful place, even though it's kind of desolate. It's got this special beauty to it that you just can't, it's just so luring. It really is. Beautiful place. All right, so I've shown you these things. You can go into Curiosity rover. You can go to Perseverance rover. You know, you can see all these places and check them out for yourself, all right? You can zoom in, zoom out, pan left and right, and get a chance to experience Mars in a way that hardly anybody even knows exists. To be able to go over and surf around here and zoom in and things and look at them and check them out for yourself, all right? So you know that worldwidetelescope.org is real, it exists, and you can get on there for yourself for absolutely free. It doesn't cost you any money. $0 to do that, okay? Let me see if I can get back into my thing here. And let me just pull this up. I'm going to pull up a little bit of a PowerPoint because I want to show you some images that myself and my team have been able to capture, some anomalies that we've been able to capture on Mars. Some have made the news, some haven't. This is an image here of the presidential panorama. One of my very first images that I found as an anomaly hunter a long time ago. And the website link is at the top. It's jplnasawashington.edu. And the full link is in this image to the actual raw source image. The top is the raw image. The bottom is the same image, but only thing we did was we blew up the actual, what might be anomalies so that you can see them. They're not altered, edited. They're not, enhanced in any way other than just being expanded with the expansion tool. So you can just see what might be there. I call it technology and I call it a sphinx. Is that what it is? I don't know. But what I do believe is that it's something that shouldn't be there. That's what I can say. It shouldn't be there. It doesn't make any sense that those things are there. Okay. This object here is amazing because if you look where this red arrow is pointing, you will see something laying on the ground that looks like an ankh. What would an ankh be doing here on Mars? Now, when you remember that remote viewer talked about in the CIA declassified document that these beings had pyramids and obelisks, just like the ones from ancient Kemet. So if that's the case, maybe there are more of these ankhs laying around. Well, we'll find some more. Of course, the famous face on Mars, the burial place of Alalu. If you read the Sumerian tales, you'll discover that Alalu was sent there to die. And that face is like a gigantic temple in remembrance of Alalu. You can see another version of that same exact face on Earth, but you can only see it from high above in an airplane at Dir Allah, right here on Earth. You can see an image of the face on Mars, copied and made here on Earth over 1,000 years ago. And here's the area that I was talking about. Excuse me, guys. 1 second. Here's the area that I was talking about, Cydonia. Now, when you look at Cydonia, you can clearly see that this area appears to be almost like geoforms. In other words, that this looks like a face of a lioness, and along her back are these objects or these structures which appear to be in alignment with Orion's belt, just like the pyramids on Earth at China, at Giza, at Teotihuacan. All are aligned. The three pyramids, all those sites are aligned with Orion's belt. And we see a very similar structure here on the back of this terraformed stone here, this rock, this huge, wide, vast area located on Mars called Cydonia, which actually means Cairo in ancient language. You can see the face on Mars, the D&M pyramid, and we showed you earlier in the video that when you take the ordnance map from Avebury, UK, and lay it over this, it matches. So the people of Avebury, UK, about 1,000+ years ago, made a replica, an analog of this city, of these ancient anomalies on Mars, on Earth. Here's that 5-sided pyramid, and here's the mathematics behind that 5-sided pyramid. Okay, this is real math. You can see the tangent at 40.89, the flattened buttress, another 40.89 on the other side. This thing exudes intelligently made. That's what it says. When anybody I show this to academics, I show this to archaeologists, I show this to scientists, I show this to engineers. I don't tell them where it is or where it's from. I just show this to them. It screams intelligently made. This doesn't appear to be just wind and rain and mud turned this into a 5-sided pyramid with geometry. So let's look at some of the weird anomalies that have been discovered on Mars by myself and some people from my team. This is from Martine Graney, one of the top anomaly hunters in the world. Literally, she's one of the best and one of the top. I'm proud to say that a woman has enough courage to go against the mainstream and spend her precious, precious spare time combing through tens of thousands of images from the space agencies around the world to look for anomalies and help to bring us disclosure. So shout out to Martine Graney for being an excellent, excellent person in the field of disclosure when it comes to anomaly hunting. Here's another object laying. The source link are on most of these images. Like you can see the source link on this image. Okay. This is Sol 36 on Mars, Curiosity rover. The Gigapan by Neville Thompson. Shout out to Neville Thompson for doing all the work on the Gigapans and stitching all the images together from the space data. This object doesn't look like a rock. I don't know what it is, but to me, it just doesn't look like a rock. This is another incredible anomaly about 4 miles wide. It's called the Princess. This is called the Princess. It's on Mars. Okay. Now, this is a very strange anomaly. Look at those arrows pointing to this thing. Look at the surrounding terrain, and you'll begin to see that this thing that I'm pointing to with the arrows does not appear to match the surrounding terrain. It has geometry. It has angles. Take a look at it. It appears to be something that may have been manufactured, and it may not be a natural formation. Now, it still could be a natural formation. We're not there. I can only say it appears to be strange, so it's been cataloged as an anomaly. Here's another amazing anomaly that was discovered on Mars. And when you take a look at it, it looks very interesting because you can see this, what looks like a giant stone or object, and then it's got a little opening in the middle and there's things inside. We don't know what these things are. Could be a rock. It could be something else, but they're very, very strange indeed. So what are these? And why are they looking directly at the camera? Here's another object that has been discovered on Mars. One of my favorite images that I put out years and years ago. This is from the Spirit rover. This is actually in the last image taken by a Spirit rover. There were more objects on this dirt road, if you want to call it a dirt road, that behind this thing, to me, that looked menacing and looked military of nature. After Spirit rover transmitted this image, it went offline and was never used again. This is the last image transmitted by Spirit rover. And if you know anything about the military, look in the back of that object. It looks like the shadow of a gun turret on the ground. I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying it looks like. This object, to me, does not look anything like a freaking rock. There's nothing that anyone can tell me to make me think that's a rock. I don't think it's a rock. I don't know what it is, but I don't think it's a rock. That's my personal opinion, and I'm sticking with it. Here's another object. I call it the R2-D2 type artifact found on Mars. It was found by Rami Bar Ilan, originally one of the anomaly hunters, one of the famous anomaly hunters. Rami Bar Ilan, he discovered this, and it's been cataloged many times over the last, I don't know how many years now. But it's a great discovery and a great find. I think I posted this back in 2016. Here's another incredible anomaly discovered. If you take a look at this, it just it exudes not made by rocks and wind and soil and rain. To me, it exudes intelligently designed. One of our anomaly hunters found this. Here's another object on Mars, just utilizing the tank for comparison. Rami Bar Ilan, again, a great discovery. Maybe Mars was the god of war. And here goes another Ankh sitting on this rock, just laying out in the middle of nowhere. Another Egyptian Ankh laying out on Mars. Don't know if it's Egyptian, but I'm going to call it Egyptian because it reminds me of an Egyptian Ankh. This is one of about 12 or 13 Ankhs that we've found laying around. When you find one, you might say, oh, just a natural formation. But when you find so many, you have to say, wait a minute, there's no coincidences. There's a connection between Earth and ancient Kemet, now known as Egypt, and Mars. This image made it onto TV, and let me go back. Made it on the TV. This object, if you take a really close look at it, you can clearly see that it's a very ornate object. In other words, there's a lot of feature and characteristics on the surface of this object. If you look towards the right side, it appears to have prongs or something sticking out. That may have meant it stood up and was plugged into something, or it was harnessed or anchored to something. And it appears to be laying flat on its side. But this made it on the TV on several shows. Martine Graney was the discoverer of this. Source links are in this image as well. At the top, the gigapan is right there. Here's another amazing image, a 4-story tall, what looks to be an ancient Egyptian statue carved out of Victoria crater on Mars. I think I posted this all the way back in 2015. This is an amazing anomaly. Again, showing there's a connection between Earth and Mars and the culture known as the ancient Egyptians, or the people of ancient Kemet. So when that guy said he saw shadowy figures, dark in nature, in stasis chambers, I believe him. This is one of my discoveries on Sol 1112. Image credit NASA JPL, Gigapan by Neville Thompson. The source link is right next to that at the bottom. You can pull it up for yourself. This object's just laying there. To me, if someone said, what does it look like? I would say it looks like some type of a broken down airplane. I don't know if that's what it is. It just looks strange to me. It doesn't make any sense that it would be there because the surrounding terrain doesn't match. But it looks like something technological to me. Not sure exactly what it is, but it just didn't match the surrounding terrain, so we cataloged it. Another amazing anomaly by Martine Graney that had been actually rediscovered by Joe White and many other anomaly hunters all around the world. They all came up with the same exact image from the Gigapan and also the Midnight Planets image, which is a source link for a lot of the NASA data and the JPL and Caltech data coming back from the rover feeds. And this is an amazing anomaly here. I mean, it kind of, to me, is reminiscent of Mohenjo-Daro in the Indus Valley on Earth, just outside of Pakistan, where there was some kind of catastrophe and there were dead bodies laying in the street. Even still today, you can Google Mohenjo-Daro and you can find the bodies laying in the street holding hands. And when you go up to these bodies with a Geiger counter, They are still higher than background level radiation still today, and no evidence of any scavenging from animals because animals aren't going to eat radioactive meat. So yes, it's bones, but the bones are radioactive still. So what caused that? And their structures or the homes that they lived in were made of mud brick, but they turned into glass. Only 3,000 degree temperatures can do that. So it tells me something strange happened, something incredible happened, and it might have been what happened right here on Mars, the god of war. This anomaly, again, Martine Graney, eerily similar to what we see in Cambodia. As you know, I traveled around the world nonstop, been to Cambodia several times, took people on a tour of Cambodia. And yes, this object or this anomaly, very, very similar to what you would see in Cambodia. Another strange anomaly, we don't know what this is, just like everything else. But what we do know is, it would be really hard for natural weather patterns to create these shapes. It would be really, really hard for natural weather patterns to create these shapes. Not impossible, but it's extremely hard. Just doesn't make any sense. So these have been cataloged as anomalies. Here goes another crazy one. Okay, again, source images in here. You can look at the top of this image. You can screenshot this. You can type it into your browser. You can look this up for yourself. Oh, let me go back. We don't want to get off of that one yet. And you'll find that this is a real image. And what's inside this particular weird looking object, this hollowed out thing, it looks like a body. It might not be. It could be rocks. But it looks similar to a body. Remember, that guy said that there were people in stasis chambers. Could this be a broken down stasis chamber that just failed and cracked maybe through some type of geological disaster? And could that be a body inside of it? We don't know. We don't know what it is, but we do know it's very strange, and we gave you the source links right within this image. Another crazy image, and the last one we'll show you tonight. It looks like a dilapidated structure on top of a hill. Okay, it could be just random looking rocks that look like a dilapidated structure, but when you analyze Martian surface, you realize there was a global flood, and this looks like there was a global flood right over the top of this hill, which destroyed this property. That's my personal opinion, and I'm sticking with it. All right, just a lot of cool stuff. A lot of cool stuff. So yeah. You know, it's just there's so much going on. I have to do a part 2 because I can be on here for 2 more hours showing you things that will blow your mind about Mars. So when this CIA document was declassified and came out, it didn't even shock me because I've been working with this Mars data since 2013 or 14, looking at these things, analyzing them, breaking them down, cataloging them. I started off before then, but in 2013 or 14, I can't remember the exact year, it was right around that range, was when I started meeting Neville Thompson, Martine Graney, Thomas Jensen, and Joe White, and Will Farrar, and all these incredible people, Rami Bar-Ilan, and all these incredible anomaly hunters. Okay, and we began collaborating, and together we've gone through over 1 million images and cataloged over 60,000 anomalies. And the anomaly groups are growing and growing and growing to where we now have hundreds of people helping us hunt for anomalies on a daily basis. We've done classes, workshops. How do you find them? What do you do? All this stuff. And we've showed them how to get that image data, how to utilize it. Neville posts the image data all the time. Neville won Anomaly Hunter of the Year in the first annual Forbidden Conscious Awards. The second year, Avi Loeb, astrophysicist from Harvard University, he won for his work he did on Oumuamua, the object that came into our solar system, used the sun for gravitational assist, and then zoomed out of our solar system. So he did a great job on that. So he got the second annual Forbidden Conscious Awards for Space Anomaly Hunter of the Year. Who's going to get the one for this next Forbidden Conscious Awards coming up? We have a lot of people, incredible people to look at and to choose from. You guys get a chance to vote. We're putting up the list of nominees, I believe tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. So you'll get a chance to vote for the Space Anomaly Hunter of the Year. You can go look up their work, check them out, and see if you believe that they've got what it takes to win that category. Okay, every year we have a full-blown conscious awards. It's like the conscious Grammys. People coming from all over the world. Both years sold out. Both years incredible, and this year is going to be even better. Looking forward to seeing everyone come on down and have a great time with us at the third annual Forbidden Conscious Awards. Okay. All the information about that coming out very, very soon. If you want to see the previous year's winners, you can go to consciousawards.com and look at all the nominees and the people who actually won those categories out of 15 different categories and a Lifetime Achievement Award in previous years. Okay. So it's just amazing. So I've got to come back and do more on Mars. Mars is just too incredible, too dynamic, and there's just so much information on Mars that, you can literally just keep going. Before I get off of here, again, this year we are paying, not everyone's, but we're paying single parent final notice electric bills. Every year we give out a grant. I've been doing it for years. The grant is not paid to you. We actually, if you're selected, we log in or we contact your electric company and we pay your bill directly. We verify it, we validate it, and make sure that it's a notice that's gone into final shut-off notice. And then, specifically in an area where it's cold, because if it's warm like where I live, there's no need to. I mean, we'd love to have you have power, but we're talking about kids freezing. The reason why we do this is because of kids being extremely cold in the winter. If you remember what happened in that cold snap in Texas a few years back, over 100 people died because it just got too cold and they had no heat. But we've been doing this for years, okay, averaging about $10,000 to $15,000 a year, paying final notice electric bills for single parents. It used to be single moms. We changed it to single parent because, yes, there are single dads. They were like, hey, well, I'm a single dad, So I'm gonna get the jot form real quick and drop it in this live chat. Just give me a second to pull up this jot form and get you guys this link. If you have or you know anyone that's in that situation, give them this link. Let me get this link right now for the final notice electric bill. Where is that link at? Here we go. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. So yes, we okay, there we go. You got the link. Boom. Just fill this information out. We vet the information. We don't pay everybody. We only have a budget for this, but we pay people's bill. It has to be a final notice. It can't be I owe $100 $100 tomorrow. I can't pay my bill tomorrow. No, it's a final notice, shut off notice. Okay. And another thing, there's a few people that keep trying to get us to pay their bill every year. I mean, come on. I feel for you, and I'm sorry that you're in that situation, but we can't pay you. There's other people that need help too. So I see your messages coming in. I see all the, requests coming in, because through the process, you end up getting some of our information. We can't pay your exact bill every year. You have to find a way to get out of your situation. Go on Forbidden Knowledge TV and join some of my financial literacy classes and start learning some financial literacy and learning what you can do to change your current situation. I wish I can pay your bill every year, but it's just not fair to other people, okay? So I'm just letting you know, I see your messages, I see them coming in, but we can't pay everybody's bill, and we can't pay the same people all the time. That would be considered favoritism. And I'm sorry that we can't do that. I really wish I could, but we have to mix it up a little bit, okay? I'll drop the link one more time in the live chat. Okay, final notice electric bill. And like I said, we don't send you the money. We either log into your account or we call in directly. The FP&L, if, for example, is Florida, we would just call or log in, change the password, take our billing information out. If we can get on a phone call, if it's not too long of a hold, we can call them. We can do it by phone. If we have to go in with a money order and cashier's check and all those kind of tricky things, we may not be able to do it. We just need to be able to call them and make a payment. It's the easiest thing and quickest thing to do. And like I said, we help as many people as we possibly can. Okay. So, but again, stop sending me. Y'all know who I'm talking about. Y'all keep trying to make me pay your bills every year. All right. Anyway, guys, we love you. We appreciate you. We thank you so much for hopping on here tonight. I'm coming back again with part 2 to Mars, because part 2 of Mars is going to be even more crazy. I'm going to show you some things about Phobos, missions to Phobos. I'm going to show you what happened with the Russian data. And then also, I'm going to show you other anomalies, some of the newer anomalies that we've cataloged that have just now began to make the news and media, mainstream news. They're asking themselves, what in the world are these things? So I can't wait to bring all of that to you. And I can't wait to hop back on here again and give you guys the link to start voting for the Conscious Awards nominees. The nominees have now been voted enough to select 5 in each category, or 4 in each category. Now it's going to be up to you to actually help pick the winner so they can receive an award. All right. Anyway, guys, I appreciate y'all. I love you. If you missed this video, just rewind it and play it again. Beautiful of digital media in the digital age. All right. And I'll be back on again very soon. I love you guys. I appreciate y'all so much. And if you don't have the Forbidden Knowledge TV app, make sure you go to your app store and get that app on your app network. Okay. And then you can watch Anunnaki Ancient Secrets Revealed, which is an incredible new series on the Forbidden Knowledge TV app. Peace. Let's see. We all have one question. Who are the Anunnaki?
The Anunnaki is arguably one of the greatest mysteries of our ancient history and our past.
We have to ask, who were the gods? The gods were extraterrestrials.
Join me in this grand odyssey and discovery as we seek to uncover the hidden truths of the Anunnaki.
By studying the Anunnaki, we truly unlock the secrets within ourselves at the same time.
We are the offsprings of extraterrestrials, and that's not coincidence.
This is the saga of the Anunnaki and their ancient secrets revealed.